UN Security Council reform, there are a lot of initiative, G4, then there are other initiative from other sorts of groups. If you could just talk about that.
Yeah, you know, let us be very clear that the need to reform the Security Council is acknowledged by decisions which flow from the Charter. There was a review of the Security Council composition which was mandated, which had to be undertaken 15 years after the Charter came into being. It was an inadequate and half-hearted attempt. There have been governmental decisions, including at the level of heads of state and government. This whole process has been going on for 19 or 20 years. But we have reached now what is called a system of intergovernmental negotiations, where we have text-based negotiations going on. There are different proposals on the table. We have one of several choices to make. One is you maintain the status quo, do nothing. The other is you do make some decisions, and the third one is what decisions. Not doing anything is not, I believe, a course of action. If the intergovernmental negotiating process were now to just wrap up and unravel without results, my own sense is somebody will put a resolution on the table and put it to a vote. And then you will get some outcome, whether it is a structured outcome that you seek or it is something unstructured, not helpful, I don't know. Therefore, I think the proposals on the table, in a sense, representing the range of choices you have, is one, an intermediate model where there will be more non-permanent members with longer seats, or an expansion in both categories, permanent and non-permanent. Now, the G4 have been pushing in one direction for reform. The L69, which is a cross-sectional group consisting of developing countries from different parts of the world, they have been pushing. And against that, you have what is called the UFC, Uniting for Consensus, which basically wants to maintain the status quo.
Which I think it was Italian initiative.
Italy, Pakistan, Spain. And at the best of times, you can count the number of countries, members of the UFC on your fingertips. You know, there aren't many more. But they get support sometimes from permanent members of the Security Council. And as I said, either this intergovernmental negotiating process is allowed to mature towards a decision, or somebody will put something to a vote and then you'll get an outcome. I don't see the UFC giving up. They are not going to give up their effort. I don't see those who are asking for reform giving up either. Now, it has taken many years, but I think we have achieved more in the last 2 or 3 years on Security Council reform than has been achieved over the last 20. Because, you know, in December 2009, 140 countries wrote a letter to the facilitator saying that start text-based negotiation. Text-based negotiation started. We have a bigger text. Now there may be a move towards getting a shorter text, and after that you have to do what is called taking action, which is voting. There is no other way. If you don't vote, you will never get agreement, because it's almost impossible to achieve a consensus, because some countries don't want reform and others desperately want it.
So when do you see there's a timeline?
No, I don't like putting timelines. I once said that, you know, we're coming back to the council after 19 years, and I went on to say that now that we're on the council, we will be looking for a more enduring presence. And I said this can be done of one of two ways, either to seek re-election more frequently or have an expansion. So I was misquoted. The second part of the statement was left out. So I don't want to put a timeline. I must tell you, I was almost expecting that the outreach program which we have ongoing with the Africans, which we have completed, that would see the light of day. But I believe the Africans have to make a report to the African Union Summit, which I believe is next week. So I'm hoping that after they make the report to this summit, we can be a little more open to talk about what the terms and conditions of that outreach are in terms of an agreed text that we have with Africa. You know, in 2005, this process didn't take off because the Africans were not on board. I'm hoping that they are on board this time.
Mm-hmm. And during your presidency, are there things that you think that didn't go the direction they should have been?
No,
do you have any regrets?
No, not at all, not at all, not at all. You must remember that the agenda of the Security Council in any given 1 month is determined largely by the reporting requirements, when the Secretary General's report, the expiry of mandates of peacekeeping missions, etc., the presidency has a very limited margin of persuasion. The presidency can at best make a few suggestions, but it's not that the presidency brings its own agenda. There's a lot of misunderstanding. People think that, if India is the chair of the president of the Security Council, they can bring all their own hobby horses onto the table, or that now Pakistan is on the Security Council, they can bring. It's not done like that. Before the month starts, the incoming presidency prepares what is called a program of work. That program of work is filled up through the mandatory extensions or consideration of mandates of peacekeeping missions, as I mentioned, the incoming reports of the Secretary General, special situations. Now, obviously, if Libya or Syria are under fire, there'll be many discussions on that under reporting on the situation in the Middle East. Now, similarly, you have French military action in Mali. You will be discussing that against an appropriate agenda. So it's not that you can unilaterally bring in stuff of your own. That's the limited point I'm making.
And I see non-aligned movement and IPSA came out with a very strong statement on Middle East. Do you see what's happening? Do you think that Middle East peace process is dead completely?
Well, you are a journalist. You can use words like dead. I'm a professional civil servant, so I would be a little more circumspect. I would turn around and say, well, the Middle East peace process isn't going anywhere without without a pronouncement of clinical, cessation of life or death. So all I can say is there is a lot of frustration. The Palestinian question has been on the table almost as long as the United Nations itself. There's a lot of frustration. The processes which the quartet had to engage are clearly not taking place. The hardliners have taken over some of these, they've acquired a position of ascendancy in different quarters. So there is a high degree of frustration. But then, what are the choices? I think the only choice is to try and revive the peace process, give it some momentum, because not to have an ongoing process, I mean, do you think you can get a solution of this through an act of war or through military exchanges? I have serious doubts. So what you need to do is to bring both sides to a meaningful and determined peace negotiation. It's a pity it's not happening. So I agree with you, except as I said, I wouldn't use the word that it is dead. All I would say is that let's try and revive it.
And can you just touch upon illegal settlements, because that's
I'll tell you the issue came before the Security Council, and there was a resolution brought before the Council. 14 members of the Security Council pronounced the settlements as illegal. The 15th member, that is the United States, said that, while it's not fundamentally disagreeing, say that they don't use the word illegal, they use the word illegitimate. Now, as a student of the English language and having tried to understand a bit of law, I don't see the difference between illegal and illegitimate. But since one of the permanent members of the Council voted negatively for pure domestic political reasons, the resolution didn't see the light of day. But if your question is, what happens if illegal settlements or settlement policy continues? All I can tell you is that the majority view is that if settlement policy continues, we are further endangering the two-state solution, and we may end up with problems of a much higher magnitude on our hands.
My second last question, which will be very quick. Do you think Kashmir is the issue should be brought in the Security Council, which I think Pakistan tried many times?
I don't know what you're probably referring to something that tried about 6 decades ago or something. Yeah, it's probably lost in some cellar, because I don't see any relevance to that issue. To the extent that countries have disputes and you have bilateral mechanisms for addressing those, I think those are the means which should be used. In any case, all I can tell you is that the international community doesn't have an appetite for it. Today, the international community is preoccupied with problems in Syria, what's happening in Libya, Syria more than that, what's happening in Mali, what's happening in Somalia, etc.
Central African Republic.
Central African Republic, Democratic Republic of Congo. So I think I don't see any relevance. And frankly, much water has flown since those resolutions were, initially put there. But as I said, there's no accounting for the what people will do. But we know how to look after our interests. Yeah.
And the Security Council or at the UN.
To come back. Well, if I have to take the decision, I would fight an election immediately to come back and to push for Security Council reform. No, the answer to that is that we will do both. Yeah.
Do you have enough confidence that India will get the support?
If we fight an election, sure we'll win. I mean, last time we got 187 votes out of 190. So depending on whom we are fighting against and how much campaigning is done. But my successor will have to worry about that. As I said, I've done my bit.
Thank you very much,
so
Ambassador.
Thank you
for
so
your
much.
time.
Thank you.